I was born with ambiguous genitalia. The doctors couldn't tell whether I was male or female. My body doesn't produce any estrogen, and my bone density is that of a 60-year-old. I'm Stephanie, I'm 28. I was born intersex, and I have congenital adrenal hyperplasia. When I was 11 years old, Mum and Dad sat me down at the dinner table. It started with a discussion around how I was born without a cervix, so I couldn't have a child. They said that when I was born, the doctors discovered that I had an enlarged clitoris, I had folds that were a bit bigger, and they found that I also had unformed testes. They said that the doctors couldn't tell whether I was male or female, and that I had a surgery to make me a female, but I have male chromosomes. Congenital adrenal hyperplasia. I sometimes get the pronunciation a bit wrong sometimes, but for me that means a hormonal system that doesn't function like everyone else's. That will affect everything from bone formation through to my body development. I have a complete lack of estrogen development, but I knew from a fairly young age that I felt like a girl. Being intersex, being born with ambiguous genitalia, there was a lot of shame that came through around not being born normal. I kept it secret because that was a safety mechanism for me. I didn't look in the mirror at my body. There was shame there. It was so difficult being around young girls who were talking about developing and hormones, and I can't say anything because if I did, it just gave it all away. Towards the end of primary school, there were some students that found out. At the time, my parents and I were on an email chain with some doctors talking about hormonal therapy that I was about to start. These kids had found the emails, they had printed them off and put them up on a wall at my primary school. I just froze. The secret was out. The bullying only increased from there. Shim, thing, it, freak, all sorts of words. I have experienced forms of loneliness that I wouldn't wish on anyone. I just sat in my room and it would wash over me in waves, this reminder of just how much of an island I really was. And it was painful. When I was 14 years old, the specialist sat me down with my mum. They examined the actions that were made when I had my initial invasive surgery as a baby and said Stephanie might have had the potential to be able to produce children had those testes remained in her body. I realised then I had become sterilised at birth. I do remember feeling very disheartened and frustrated with doctors at that point. University was fantastic in that there was a completely new environment, drinking and partying and having a good time. I had breast augmentation and I finally started feeling attractive to people that I wanted to date, but I still didn't have that confidence to be able to say to people, I'm intersex. As I was walking to the shops one afternoon, I suddenly felt incredibly dizzy. I went incredibly pale and cold and clammy, a slight bluish tinge on the lips. My partner then had to call an ambulance. They said that I was having a complete collapse of my endocrine system. They liken it sometimes to like a hypo with a diabetic. You just start to crash and you require an injection of something. At the time, I sort of ignored doctors' advice on taking certain medications because it was becoming a daily reminder of that part of me that I just didn't want to acknowledge. It woke me up to the fact that I needed to take this more seriously. Oh God, it feels a bit foolish looking back on it now, to be honest. It's been 8 years since I've had adrenal fatigue crisis. When I was first able to talk to my friends about me being intersex, They actually just didn't really care, which was like one of the best reactions I could have had from that. They didn't mind. It didn't affect our social dynamic or our friendships in any way. I suppose everyone's different in a way, so it kind of makes you feel normal. It's normal to be different. It's such a paradox to say it like that. Mum and Dad have always been very supportive of me speaking about my story. Now I work in policy with a big charity, but I also do a lot of time in politics and advocacy as well. I want to speak up and see some change around protecting intersex children. I used to feel shame. There was that stigma of the world isn't going to pick you. But the mantra I use for myself every single day is, I pick me. I would genuinely say now I'm significantly more confident in who I am and how I see myself. Being able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, yes, I feel like who I see is who I am. To get one of those little clackers cut? No. If you want to know more or you need help, please see the links in the comments.